Hello, everybody. Happy Monday afternoon. Hope yours is going well. We've got another Seahawks video to get to today, but first we just hit 3,640 subscribers to the channel. I want to give a shout out to all the subscribers. And where's my hat? Oh, here we go. Special tip of the cap goes to the channel members, especially elite channel members Brendon, Mikel, Hasher for MVP, VGK Tigers 75, Rye Guy, Salacious Crumb, Brendan Nelson's Haircut, 12th Man, TVO, It's Hoof, The Reno, Austin Roberts, Scott Todd, PH Glass, Aaron Garrett, and Arfman23, and new channel member as of yesterday, Samoan4251. All right, by the way, one member away from a new emoji, one member away from 40 total. Something to think about for you guys who haven't joined yet. $2 a month. Okay, so we're going to keep on rolling on the UDFA train. We still have 9 UDFAs I haven't really discussed in any amount of depth yet. We discussed the 3 most interesting ones yesterday, the 3 wide receivers. I feel like all 3 of those guys are going to make the team. And by the way, I got a handful of comments yesterday saying that Connor Weddington had played running back before and may be moving to running back for us. If true, that's actually very interesting because the way I see it, this team feels like they still need a third down running back. So if Connor Weddington can be our third down running back, then he may make the 53-man. And I had him as roster fodder as recently as yesterday, so that would certainly be a big step in the right direction for him. So for those of you who might be wondering how I feel about Connor Weddington knowing what I know now, that would be my initial assumption. We're turning him into a third down running back. And that could spell bad news for Travis Homer. But anyway, today's video is not about Connor Weddington or the players we looked at yesterday. Today we're going to be taking a look at 3 of the 4 offensive linemen that we picked up in UDFA yesterday, or the day before. And these are the 3 ones that I think have a decent chance of making the team in some capacity. The 4th one I will talk about later, but I don't feel like he has a path forward after really sitting and thinking about it. So after taking some time to mull over and read some takes and try to get a feel for things, here are the 3 UDFA offensive linemen that might have a future with the Seahawks, in my estimation anyway. All right, the first guy we're going to take a look at here is Jake Curhan, offensive tackle, 23 years old, played at California. He's a big guy, 6'6", 316 pounds. He's not Stone Forsythe big, but very few people are. Ran a 5.45 40 times, so that's quite slow even for an offensive tackle. So put that in your back pocket for now. We'll talk about that later. The only website that gave Jake Curhan a draft grade, a draftable grade, was Walter Football. They thought he was going to be a 3rd to 5th round pick, which is actually really high. They actually thought this guy could get drafted in the top 100. Which makes them an anomaly, but it's notable that somebody who does this stuff thinks he was a really good player. ESPN had him on the fringes of the 7th round, but they thought he was just going to be a UDFA by, a couple dozen picks. Pro Football Network had him in the mid 300s, and Draft Network and Pro Football Focus did not have him ranked at all. So there's some credible scouting done on him that says that he's somebody who at least belongs in the NFL on some level. So I feel like this guy has a chance on the practice squad. So Jake Curhan was a 4-year starter at right tackle. He's a big, strong road grader type. He's good fundamentally in terms of using hands and keeping in position. He's aggressive and powerful enough to bully defenders. Honestly, when I was reading this, and this may be something to consider moving forward, I kind of got the impression he might move to guard. He might end up playing on the inside in the NFL. He's big, he's strong, aggressive. His motor keeps running until the play is over. He's got good awareness. He's got the attributes that I more see in a guard in the NFL. So look for him to maybe move to guard in the coming months. He does not have great footwork or use of leverage. He needs to learn how to get lower than his opponent. He's got poor lateral movement, and he's not a good athlete. So some of those attributes, remember for a few minutes from now, because we're going to talk about this a little bit more. But when I look at some of the things they say about him, he's slow, he's not a good athlete, he doesn't have good footwork, but he's big and strong and aggressive. I think, oh, this guy's probably going to move to guard in the NFL. So Jake Curhan, I feel like he has a chance to latch on the practice squad. I don't think he's going to make the 53 man. I don't see any room for him. But Jake Curhan could make the practice squad as one of our guards. So if I had to guess right now, I would say that Curhan finds a way onto that part of our roster. Okay, so that was the first offensive line UDFA. Let's go to the second one. Jared Hocker, offensive guard, could not find his age from Texas A&M. He's another big guy in terms of, girth. Not so much height, but 6'5" is plenty big enough for a guard. 323 pounds, very nice. Ran a 5.3340. Again, relatively slow, even for an offensive lineman. Nobody thought he was going to get drafted. ESPN thought he was going to miss the draft by less than 10 picks, though. They thought he was very close to being a seventh rounder, so honestly, what's the difference? He's basically a late seventh round prospect, according to ESPN. Pro Football Network, the Draft Network, thought he was going to be one of the better UDFAs in the 300s, and Walter Football and Pro Football Focus didn't have him ranked at all. So I feel like this is another guy who could latch on the practice squad. What I can say about Jared Hocker is he played 38 games in college for a pretty good Aggies offense. He's got a strong frame with a sturdy lower half that can get rushers off their burst quickly. That being said, he's not a very good athlete, and he will need to be in a system that allows him to play downhill and keep things simple. So here's the thing. That's two offensive linemen we've looked at so far who are not mobile, not agile, not very fast, not people who seem like they're going to be able to play in space, not people who seem like they're the kind of offensive lineman that I thought Shane Waldron was going to want for his offense. So I don't know if we dismiss that on the grounds of these guys are never going to make the roster anyway, or do we start thinking that maybe Waldron doesn't necessarily want nimble offensive linemen? Maybe he's okay with the road graders. Maybe he's okay with the guys who just play in phone booths. Because to me, both guys we just looked at may just be those kinds of guys, the guys who play in a phone booth. If true, then I think it becomes a little more valid to question why did we not get Creed Humphrey? Because that was my knock on Creed Humphrey. He plays in a phone booth, but I didn't have anything else bad to say about Creed Humphrey. So, granted, these guys are probably practice squatters at best, but the fact that we picked these guys up when there were other offensive linemen out there who were a little more nimble and more able to play in space makes me wonder if my assumptions were just a little off the mark here. So that's something to look forward to in training camp and preseason to see what kind of offensive line we end up having, but it did catch my attention. All right, now let's go to the third and final UDFA we picked up on the line who I think has a chance of making the team. Pier-Olivier Lestage. And I don't have very many notes on this guy because they're very hard to find because he played at a Canadian college last year. He didn't even play last year. Last time he played football was 2019. This guy's 23 years old. He played at Montreal. He's 6'3", 305 pounds. Could not find his 40 time. He's got the size of a center. So even though he played guard in college, I'm sure he's going to play center in the NFL. And a lot has been said about Lestage, but this team really wanted him. This team has been talking to him for weeks. This team has expressed great interest in bringing him in, enough to the point where it's worth wondering if he makes the active roster, if he makes the 53-man. We do have a clear and obvious issue at the center position. Even if you like Posick, we have a depth issue. So Lestage could end up the backup center, and for all we know, could even push Posick. I could not find this guy on any major scouting website because he didn't play last year, so he couldn't even have a pro day that NFL teams could attend because of the pandemic. So it's really hard to know what to say about Lestage. What I could find is that he plays with a mean streak and he moves well for his size, all things considered. I couldn't find his 40 time, but it seems like this might be a guy who can play in space. And if that's true, then my prior point that I made about Hocker and Curran is a little maybe not so valid. So if Lestage is somebody who can play in space and move well and throw blocks at the second level, then maybe we see him having a future on the active roster because of that. He can hit with force coming out of his stance. He learned how to play aggressively without committing penalties in 2019. He does things well technically, and he did not play football in 2020 because of the pandemic. So I don't know much about this guy, even after trying to research Pierre, because it's really hard to find stuff on him. He played in Montreal last year. Nobody thought he was going to get drafted. Nobody had him ranked on any of the drafting websites I use. So all we can say is that this guy seems to be our version of Quinn Miners, except hopefully he can play in space. And you guys know I didn't like Quinn Miners. I did not want to use our top pick on Quinn Miners at all. But this guy, if you're getting him in UDFA for a few grand, then I'm much more willing to listen to the possibility of him panning out. So those are the three offensive linemen who I think have a future on this team. Lestage may be a rostered player, a 53-man roster player in 2021. We'll have to see, but we like him a lot, clearly. We believe in him to a certain degree, and he came here when he could have chosen many other teams who were actually offering him a little more money. So he must see an opportunity to actually get on the field here. All right, so those are your next three UDFAs. I'm going to get out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. I will be back in a future video to talk about the next three UDFAs, but let me know what you guys think about these three. Who's making the team? Who's contributing this year? Who's on the practice squad? Let me know. Peace out.